Hey guys, welcome to episode 22 of Dash and Holmesy Take Your Hearts, powered by Audio Technica. I'm one of your hosts, Dash, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Holmes. Holmesy!
How we doing? What it do, boys and girls?
What it do?
What it do?
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a long time. When was the last episode that we uploaded?
Oh man, I think it was like
two
not
months ago?
last lockdown, the lockdown before it.
Don't say lockdown. It's like
so
that
which
trigger
means
word.
it was about February.
Oh god, it's more than he's like 4 months ago.
Yeah,
it's way longer than, man, time has flown.
Yeah, but our release schedule was kind of like, okay, we'll release it once here and then once here, so it's kind of like spread apart. And I mean, it'll be the same here again, and obviously we'll be wearing the same clothes in the next two episodes.
Yeah. Made sure I wore a different t-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I should change between apps. That's a good idea.
No. Don't worry about it. Waste of time.
People will think it was a different day.
Yeah, how you been?
Good, man. Yeah, just keeping busy, just doing content stuff, streaming, YouTube, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Trying not to get the spicy cough and all that.
Oh, right. Yeah, the spicy cough.
Yeah.
Tell me about
it.
Well, I didn't, not that I had COVID, but yeah, a couple of weeks ago when we were supposed to record this and copying bronchitis and stuff. Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, not a good time.
No.
I know that's glad that you're out the other end of that finally.
Oh, thank God, man! Thank God I got out of it just in time for E3 as well. So it was like, oh,
yeah, true.
Because that would have been fucking hell if it was during E3. I tell you.
Man, I can't believe that's already blown by too.
Oh no, damn! It is the end of June, man. We're almost in July. Can you believe it?
PAX is next.
Guys, if you didn't know, this is Dash and Holmesy Take Your Hearts. It's our something or rather book club inspired gaming podcast. I can't say tri-weekly.
Monthly.
It's been tri-weekly for like so long now. It's our book club inspired gaming podcast, which Holmesy and I have been sitting down for the last couple of years and talking about Persona 5 and its lore and everything else about it, and we've enjoyed that. Don't forget to follow us over on Anchor, iTunes, and Spotify. Yeah, we'll switch the services because Anchor is a better service than SoundCloud these days. So,
all right,
Anchor, iTunes, and Spotify. Give us those cheeky 5-star ratings. That surely helps us out. And also catch the VOD over on dashgamer.com and on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell, give us a like, leave us a comment. It surely helps us out. Holmesy, the housekeepings. We did this last time where I asked you whether you had any of the latest stuff that you want to pimp out about your channel and anything else. Have you got anything going on that you would like to pimp out for the folks?
Nothing new, just the usual. At Holmes literally search Holmes on YouTube, and at Holmes with 5 on every other social media platform, because getting at Holmes is impossible. all those handles are taken. I can't be the brand I want to be, but it's okay.
It's
I digress.
Holmes in 5 is like
Holmes in 5.
Yeah, pretty much where you want to go. Just go to Holmes in 5. Just type Holmes in 5 everywhere.
That's it.
That's it. For Dash Gamer, there's a whole bunch of reviews up. I'm not going to go through everything, but there's a whole bunch of reviews up right now, including Scarlet Nexus. So make sure you guys check out what's going on over there. I want to, before we continue, I want to say a huge thanks to 5-Star Games for providing Persona 5 Strikers to both Holmesy and I. Have been having a lot of fun playing that. And also throughout our time, giving us a chance to play Persona, the dancing games, and Persona 5 Royal. That's been a lot of fun too. But Holmesy, these are our last 2 episodes together. So this is going to be a lot of fun to kind of wrap up Persona 5 with Persona 5 Strikers. Before we get into like the meat and bones of Persona 5 Strikers, I just want to kind of ask you quickly, like, with your time playing Persona 5's lore, do you really think that like this might be the end of the Phantom Thieves?
For the team that we've got here now, I really hope not. Like, there's so many, like, there's Persona 5, then Persona 5 Royal, and then Persona 5 Strikers. They've got, even though Royal, of course, is an expansion of the original game, like, there's been so much that they've sunk into, like, this team.
Yeah.
And the lore surrounding them, and just, like, it's a pretty it's a pretty big game and a long journey for like the team that you're used to. So I'd like to think that if they do make another Persona series, that it is continuing on with the same group that we're used to. But with that being said, everything something has to come to an end at some point too. So I won't be upset. I'll just be disappointed if they decide to change the team. But look, they've done. Persona is a pretty beloved series for a lot of like long-term fans. I have obviously just gotten into it thanks to you with Persona 5, and like I already really like the people that we're playing with now. But look, people have been a fan of it from the start through till now. So I'm sure changing the team will be a sad moment, but still, a whole new bunch of characters to fall in love with again, which is either way, it'll be a good addition.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives it a little bit of a refresh on the franchise itself, and not just like one chapter of Persona 5 or Persona, I should say. So it'll be interesting when they swap them out and see who they bring in. So Persona 6 wouldn't be far off now, because we're how many years? So Persona 5 launched in 2016 in Japan. So we're actually only like 4 years off. 4.5 years off its 10-year anniversary, which is not like I say that, but it's not too far away when you really think about it. So every 7 years a new Persona comes out, really 7 to 8 years. So really they're kind of due for an announcement that, hey, Persona 6 is around the corner. And I know that their development cycle is going to be faster this time, because now they have a fixed engine that they're probably working on. True. So, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting whether or not that actually happens, because I know that this year is the 30th anniversary. Is this the 30th anniversary of Persona, I believe. So
as a whole, wow, okay.
Yeah, so there you go. Chris,
that's crazy.
Let's jump into Strikers, where you last left off. Where we last left off was obviously the Okinawa jail. You had just arrived to the Okinawa jail. And obviously finding out its secret, basically. Like it's basically placed next to a beach, first of all, next to a resort, which is weird in itself. Like, I'd say weird because like the atmosphere there, you would think, would be a lot more lively, a lot more cheerful, but it was one of the weirdest places to find this jail. So give me your thoughts on approaching the jail, finding the jail, and everything else. Like when you arrive to its quote unquote entrance, and kind of how it was like for you discovered and everything else.
Yeah, so I mean, the ferry ride over was really cool. Seeing them on them having a little montage trip over was nice. But getting there, like initially landing there or like actually getting to the place, things seemed kind of normal, I guess, because there was like a bunch of just like either residents or tourists kind of like chilling out and near the dock where we come in.
Yeah.
But then obviously the longer you're there, the more you realize that things are off. Like when you actually find the entrance to the jail itself in the real world, and you get there and you see that it says it's shut down until the next day.
Yeah.
And so we decide to hang around and leave and come back the next day. And someone's constantly updating the poster to say it's closed till the next day, and the next day perpetually, so nobody ever goes in there.
That's right.
And all these people that are just like so protective of this place and obviously clearly been brainwashed to protect and guard this thing. It's definitely one of the most eerie settings in the real world before going into the jail compared to everything else. Like a lot of the other ones are very like lighthearted, like Shibuya Jail for Alice Haragi was a lot of people just being big fans of a creator or a big fan of like a singer and all that kind of stuff. And then this one, there's just people guarding this I don't know, almost protecting a fortress as if they've been brainwashed to be soldiers. It was a very weird experience compared to the other jails.
Yeah, I akin it to almost when you go back to like Persona 5 Vanilla and almost that sequence between defeating Shido to going into Mementos, and where people are really kind of fascinated with the fact that Shido is really their only hope. And this seemed almost kind of like akin to that, like very much the effects of the app are starting to kind of spread more and more now. And you're starting to see that within, civilization, the app is really starting to kind of show its effects throughout, Earth's popularity. It's not just a central character anymore that's kind of manipulating one thing, and now it's starting to develop into that whole there's a higher being here that's starting to control shit, and we don't know what.
No.
And we kind of get a taste of that here as we head into the jail. Now, heading into the jail, I want to say that this was one of the more bringing it back moments. Like, I feel like this is definitely the aesthetic and design of the Okinawa jail really let off more. Instead of it being a jail, it was a palace.
Yeah.
Go
even
on.
Like the soundtrack in this one was probably one of my favorites overall, because it was very like dark and eerie, and even like the whole vibe of the entire place just gave off like a really just spooky vibes, like something bad's going on here, like something. And obviously, as we go through the jail further, we learn a lot more about what's actually being conducted inside the jail.
Yeah.
The whole tone of the game just shifted entirely. Like, this is such a pivotal jail, because all the other ones, like I said before, are so like, I think the one we had before with Mariko was probably the slightly more serious one, talking about politics and, all that kind of stuff surrounding like who's going to be the mayor of a certain place. And then this one taking a shift into like human testing inside a jail, and just like, I don't know. This is it's probably like one of the darkest darkest jails / palaces that have been put into the game so far.
Yeah, there is definitely, like you hit it on the head there. There is definitely a tonal shift that happens here, and it's definitely gone from going from like hopping from jail to jail, and discovering an antagonist that's kind of controlling each city to this pivotal moment where essentially we discover that there has been more research done between reality and the metaverse again, and it's almost kind of like when the government had hold of that, it was different to what's happening here. This is more like I don't know how else to put it, but like an underground research lab of the metaverse, as well as it's very much just like a black market research kind of deal that's going on here. This is not connected to the government. It's not connected to Shido. It's not connected to anything that Futaba's mum was dealing with at the time. This is now completely separate, but it's still toying with the idea that a cognitive space exists in an alternate reality, and that people are using it for
just their own benefit.
Exactly. There's a way to manipulate reality, but using the metaverse to do so. So these black market scientists are basically trying to kind of figure out a way to do so. Now, going through it, we discovered that there was a central figure, a key figure that was doing this, like leading the team to kind of figure out more about the metaverse in time. But then we find out that he was actually he's deceased basically. And there's a reason for that. Did you find out who that was and what happened there?
So Okinawa jail, that was the guy that was dead by the time we got there was Shuzo Ubakata, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I can't remember now, because it has been a long time since I played this particular jail. It's been probably back since February that I actually played through that. I can't recall how they passed away though.
So they committed suicide, unfortunately, and that's why. So we go back to the 7 deadly sins now, and and he was marked with sloth, basically the same one as Futaba in Persona 5. And the reason being was he basically he tried to live with his desires, but there was also, because he was basically trying to keep people away from what his research was, but also manipulate them to work with him so they didn't find out the truth. He turned more into like a recluse. He basically decided that he didn't need anybody, and it essentially led to his demise, basically, because it kind of entails the same thing as kind of like what Wakaba did in Persona 5 Vanilla, but her reasoning, obviously, she was manipulated to do so. Somebody had the government had manipulated Wakaba to commit suicide in Persona 5, whereas this time, or I should say, it really was Shido. Whereas this time, it's of his own doing, or so we think again. So we end up. So as we traverse through the jail, obviously that it's almost. There are points of the jail where it's completely dead until you get up, like as in it's empty. But then we get up to certain points where there's shadows again, and the way that these shadows they're different from previous shadows that we've encountered. Like we've encountered shadows that have taken the form of more security guards than anything. Now, in this jail, we kind of get like these morphed and mutant kind of ghost figures. If anything, they don't look anything like we've encountered before. Even though when we fight them, that it comes up with like a party of them basically because it's a Muso game. So again, like fighting through multiple shadows, I found that what I did find though was that these ones are tough motherfuckers. These ones were actually tougher than the ones in the past. How'd you find it?
I was just about to say, even like I played the game through even on easy, like playing it on like easy for story experience, playing it on that, I definitely noticed like a shift in like they're not all the different shadows that you fight here. You can't just jump in and like hack and slash quick and easy, like don't use persona abilities or anything like that. So
right.
they're more resistant to your physical attacks and guns and all that kind of stuff. You need to pick specifically what they're weak to and use your SP sparingly and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a change of difficulty there. I can't imagine how hard it would have been on the highest difficulty. But yeah, I'll pass on finding out the world in person. Yeah, but I definitely noticed that.
Yeah, there was a I believe there was an escalation point here, and it was it was a message to the player to tell you, hey, you guys have reached the midpoint of the game, and we're letting you know now from this point forward, you're gonna cop it. And I believe like this was this kind of gave us a taste of things to come, because as we traversed through the palace, they were difficult. But then as we left Okinawa Palace, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but as we left Okinawa Palace, we kind of reset it to a norm, but it still escalated. But even traversing through this palace, it really was like, we've got something here that's hidden. We don't want to tell you what it is. We're going to barricade the fuck out of you. Here's a bunch of shadows that are going to just decimate you the entire time that you're here.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience. I'll give it that. I love this palette. Like apart from a couple of the later palaces, which we'll get into in a second, this is definitely my favorite. And,
really? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it really gave off the old school Persona. Like it was a palace. It wasn't a jail. It really, like, as soon as you walk in and as soon as you see it, you're like, this is not a jail of like that we've seen before. This looks
that
like
is
a palace.
Yeah, that's also, if I'm remembering correctly, this jail also didn't have the same what were they called again? You'd have to find like the power sources that protected like the final area, right? This was still like this is a very linear jail to go through from start to finish and find your hidden corridors and your hidden chests and stuff like that.
There was a purpose here.
There's a very purposeful way to go, and all the other ones had like power cores you had to find to actually get to the final boss, and this one, none of that.
Yeah, I'd say that like if anything, it does feel like you said, it feels linear and everything. Its structure though kind of maintains one that's kind of stays similar to reality though, and there's not really much of a distortion within it.
No.
So in saying that, it's a weird amalgamation of what we would expect of a palace from Persona 5, but also just kind of keeping it in the norm. But I believe that's also kind of like distortion waning, because obviously the ruler of this jail.
I was about to say, would it be because they've died that they're starting to not
deceased,
exist as much? Yeah,
correct. But its existence. The weird thing is they're deceased, but the existence of this jail continues. But you can tell that the distortion is light, even though the enemies that are there are heavy. So there is definitely like a contrast here that's happening, but you can't pick it. And I felt that. And you mentioned the soundtrack too. Fucking hell, the soundtrack on this palace is so awesome.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. It has really, really helped to set the tone of the, or set the mood of the palace compared to all the others.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think if anything, it's going to be one of those things where when we reach the end, which we did, we find out basically there's a, a central figure that's now manipulating this palace, but we kind of don't get all of it, all of what's happening here. So reaching the end of the palace reaching the end of the jail is interesting. So what did you discover once you reached the end?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember now as well if there was like a big fight at the very end, but I know we get to the end. There isn't, right? Nope. Yeah, cool. I was gonna say I was thinking to myself, I don't think there was, but I'm gonna rack my brains in case there was, because we get to the end and then we hear a voice talking to, what's her name again? Help. Sophie. We hear a voice talking to Sophie. Yeah, I'm having a mental blank. There's so many names to remember.
Yeah.
We hear a voice talking to Sophie, and I don't remember specific lines, but I remember I'm pretty sure I remember like a lot talking about like how useless Sophia is, or like how much of a waste of space she is, and that she's not like fulfilled a purpose, or she's not needed. Is this when Ryuji swears? Is this when he drops the F-bomb?
That's right, yeah, it is, yep.
Because I remember that happening and I'm like, oh, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, that's when Ryuji like stops and yells at this voice saying like, shut the fuck up. And it was like, oh, let's go. Okay, this is, I've never actually heard him swear to that extent before.
Okay, so we're talking about mental blanks. There is a fight. It's not with the the jail's ruler though. So we figure out that this jail's ruler is just like this big diamond or this big jewel that's sitting.
Oh yeah, it looks like one of those special the shadows you can find, the rare shadows. I can't remember what they're called now.
Yeah. And that's where it's coming from. This is where that voice is emanating from. It sits in the ceiling and it's telling Sophia these disgusting messages, basically like she's useless and everything. Ryuji just kind of goes off, which is fucking hilarious. But they basically what they do is send out a what was it called? A jail keeper, a key keeper? I can't remember what the bloody called now.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the lock keeper. Yeah. And that's where you fight basically. Like, so it's not really the jail's ruler that you fight. It's they send off a minion to fight you. Now we've fought many of these in the past, but this one here was different. Once again, feeling the difficulty of the game, it really ramped up on this fight. It took a lot out of me personally, like to get through this fight. I thought, if anything, it was going to be, like a cakewalk, kind of like how the other ones were. But this one bought everything, like in terms of like our past fights, it bought everything. And I was like, oh my God. And it bought its own power too, which was like, a teleportation or something like that. So it was hard.
So it copied all the previous, it literally had like every power from past lock keepers, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was
what difficulty did you play on, out of curiosity? Because I was playing on easy. Are you playing on normal? Or
I was playing on normal.
Playing on normal? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Mainly because like I thought to myself, I've played Horror Warriors. I've played, I only had recently played Horror Warriors. So I was like, I'm acclimated with what is to come here. So I should be all right. I should have just gone with easy, to be honest. So the amount of times I died, I was like, but yeah, once again, it's it's a trudge to get through some of these things, and you know, discover their weaknesses and everything else. You got to, you know, it's again like Persona 5, where you got to discover these enemies' attributes, and it's sometimes it can be a big pain in the ass, but it's part of that. It's the name of the game, you know, like it's that instinct of it being not only a Muso but an RPG. And understanding that in that RPG side of things, we have to break it down and discover what these enemies' weaknesses and what their strengths are, and make sure that we don't effectively elevate their strengths on them, because then afterwards, half the time, basically they regenerate their health because you've mistaken.
That happened. Yeah, the end of last part, I was talking about a boss that was doing that, the nuclear affinity, and Makoto was the only one that was alive for me, and all I could do was physical attacks, which were really low damage, or nuclear was healing it, so I just basically gave up and died.
Yeah, would have had to, yeah. So this was definitely one of those times where I was like, man, this boss is killing me, especially like I've got some of the footage up on the screen right now where they have, because they got 4 arms and they use the baton shields basically, and they place them down and they squat behind them, and you're just basically trying to slash the shit out of them, but they are like blocking every single move, and it's like, oh my god, stop. So how'd you find that fight?
So it was still a challenge, definitely. Like, as you notice a lot keeper fights ramp up as the game goes, for sure. Like you definitely realize that, like, you know, your first one has just got your basic kind of like run and swing simple attacks, and like after 4 palaces, or this being the 4 jails, after 4 jails, or being on the 4th jail, seeing like all of those abilities kind of like form into one, you definitely see it. Even on easy, it was still a challenge. I didn't die, I still made it through the fight, but it was definitely one of the closer calls compared to like earlier fights as well. So still a challenge for me.
Yeah, I really look. Even though this was the more disappointing part of the jail. It was more because I was expecting a key figure here to show up at the end and to fight us. I understand that they were kind of like, no, there's more behind the story here. That, you know, we're not gonna expose that yet. And it's like, okay, fair enough, whatever. I love the jail. The ending was a little anticlimactic for me, you know, that they just kind of threw a lockkeeper our way and said, here's your fight. And it's like, I would have liked, I don't know, something a little more, but I guess again, it's a pathway to a grander story that they're trying to tell, which was fine. But yeah, it was more of a, I wouldn't say I was let down by it, but I was kind of like, kind of expecting something more out of that.
Well, we only found, if I'm remembering correctly, we found out who the main antagonist was shortly after finishing this jail, didn't we? Before we even got to Kyoto, if I'm remembering right. There was something, wasn't there documents we found? We went back in, we were in this jail, and we found paperwork that helped Zenkichi to trace back who it was that was causing all of this, and like how they were linked to all the jail people, right? And that's when we found out it was Koei.
Well, I don't know if it was here. Was it that it was here that we found out it was Koei?
Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I've written a note down here specifically saying surely we're not discovering the main antagonist halfway through the game. And I think it was either here or maybe it was Kyoto, but I feel like I recall
that's right.
After this jail in between, we were searching through drawers and places inside this jail to find evidence of, there's like a list of people we're looking for and who's connected to all of them. Koei.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was before we get to Kyoto that we've discovered that, and then the rest of it obviously progresses as we keep going.
That's right, because after we finish the jail, we end up going through all those boxes.
Yeah. We go back and investigate,
Yeah. Now, as we kind of dive through the boxes and find out the clues and everything else, which is like, this was one of those moments that kind of took me out of the entire game, and I was really kind of weirded out by it, which was it kind of cuts to a scene where it's at night, and the camera kind of pans into the Phantom Mobile, as they call it, the caravan, and all of a sudden, there's people from the town who are raiding the caravan. They're raiding the caravan angrily.
Yeah.
This was one of my more memorable moments of the game that I remember, because it was so weird. Like this cutscene was really kind of taken out of the element of Persona, and I was like, man, that was odd. But then like you kind of figure, okay, all right, we're starting to get more and more of that manipulation happening here within humanity, and again, there's a central figure here that's starting to kind of spread further out than just the city, as other jail keepers have kind of had in the past, where they've been able to, like, I kind of use our last our last boss as a perfect example, because she was trying to run for mayor, and she used the app to manipulate her town to do so. But now, it's more than that, and we're starting to see that happen. And it's obvious that the figure that we just spoke to has obviously started to kind of kindle out one of those false gods kind of deals again.
Yeah.
And we're heading towards that direction of, oh shit, okay.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. We got a false god coming forward and thinking that they can just manipulate humanity. Not on our watch. But I think
I know what you're saying though about it taking it out of the game, because this is like the vast majority of this game and Persona 5. A lot of the threats to your life are inside the cognitive world as well.
Correct.
Aside from the end of Persona 5, but this time, like in the real world, people are literally coming after you with torches and pitchforks, which I think is a bit of a different or jarring experience compared to everything else. So yeah,
we've
never actually seen them. Is there any other real times the people that the Persona, like the Phantom Thieves, have been threatened in the real world, like with actual like real world weapons? Because obviously a lot of the stuff they do is in the cognitive world. No. Aside from the end of Persona 5, I don't think there's ever been a time where they've been threatened in the real world.
Well, it's because nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who they are, but the thing is, we discover that people here are a little more protective of like their sacred grounds, basically, because that where the jail was placed was considered sacred ground, and you could not walk on it or anything else. But what it really was this god manipulating the civilization there to tell them to keep those people away, because obviously the god knows who the Phantom Thieves are. So this is one of those moments where it really kind of takes a stronghold on reality and really kind of acts more like a puppet master than anything.
Yeah.
So this, and you're right. This is one of those, like I said, this was one of those moments that it didn't really feel like a Persona moment, but shit, did it feel scary.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I actually liked it because it was different. It was something that was we hadn't seen or experienced prior to this. Everything that what you just said was perfect. Everything that, in terms of threatening, other than like, police trying to hunt down the Phantom Thieves in reality, and then trapping Joker in the basement. That was more that the cops had entered the metaverse, which was never really explained. I kind of
as to how they got there.
Yeah, like how cops were able to arrest Joker in the metaverse and take him away.
Yeah.
It was never really
explained. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I even put down, I thought it was crazy that there was all these riot shield and assault rifle looking people coming in there just to arrest kids. It's like seems like over the top. But yeah, you're right. I don't know how they did get in there.
Yeah. So that was always one mystery that I kind of took from Persona 5, but yeah, there you go. But that would be one example that you could kind of connect with this. But again, it's different. It's different here. This is normal people trying to find these kids and basically kill them, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's a weird one.
Like what you're hearing today? Be sure to follow all Dash Gamer podcasts on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify by simply typing dashgamer.com into the search bar of your favorite podcast provider. And don't forget to check out our gaming, anime, and pop culture related news on dashgamer.com. Now back to the show.
Rain, huh?
But from that point forward, we're back on the ferry, and we're basically having to head back to Kyoto. So we were in Kyoto prior, where we met Zenkichi's daughter, and that was an interesting experience in itself, where Zenkichi's daughter wasn't too fond of her own father. And then we basically have to head back to his house again, only to discover that she's basically gone. And so take me through the motions here of when you're arriving to back to Zenkichi's, and then like discovering the Kyoto jail and everything else.
Yeah, so this bit now I'm remembering because Akane gets a phone call from somebody, doesn't she?
Correct.
I can't recall who it is now, but she gets a call convincing her that essentially she's on her own, or the Phantom Thieves aren't like who they say they are, kind of thing. It was it's Koei.
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, essentially manipulates her into being, uses her as bait actually as well to lure out the Phantom Thieves, which is also, this game, there's a lot of dark stuff that goes on in this game.
Correct,
like, as a whole, this game, like, there's human testing in the Okinawa jail, which we actually even glazed over in that jail. The fact that they use that place as human testing for cognitive stuff is wild and horrible.
Yep.
But also, he ends up using Akane as bait and gets her set up inside her own jail to essentially lure them out and try and do away with them himself, which is kind of full on. We've not seen this. This isn't in Persona 5. There's nothing like this. I don't know whether there's any previous Persona games that have had this done, but yeah, pretty grim. And like even obviously we were talking about the last jail, somebody using the people on the island and manipulating them to protect something that is supposed to be like sacred. Again, more manipulation, except doing it with someone that's even more close to the case than anybody else. Like using Zenkichi's daughter to get to the Phantom Thieves is a new low. I was actually super surprised to see that too. And I also was, as soon as I saw that Akane had a jail, the first thought I had was, I do not want to fight her.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat up Shadow Akane at all. She's too sweet.
Was she really that sweet? I don't know. Well, not towards her father, but she was definitely an interesting character. Now, when we arrived back to Kyoto, on our way to Kyoto, I should say, Haru takes the wheel. And
that's right. And she's a horrible driver.
she's
not a horrible driver. She's a fast driver, and everyone hates that.
Yeah, she's a road rager. So hilarious moment when arriving to the hideout. Now, the hideout becomes basically our keep for like the entire game from this point forward. This is our safe space. This is our haven. And we end up here pretty much every time we're not in a jail from this point. So not only that, it becomes more of the Phantom Thieves' main sanctuary, because as we mentioned, more and more of the game, it becomes dangerous for the Phantom Thieves to be exposed. In the real world, so they're basically trapped here almost half the time, which is interesting. Anyway, now there is another thing that we find out about all this, and that is all this again is connected to Shido.
Yeah.
So basically, after finding out. Sorry?
It's because Akane and Owada are both supporters of Shido, right?
Yep, that's correct, yep.
Yeah.
So we find out that because they were supporters of Shido, Shido basically was manipulating these guys in... So we kind of mentioned this a little bit, where the government side of things, it was like, okay, official, scientists and everything looking into the metaverse, but Shido was using his powers to manipulate this black market research lab in looking into it further for more devious acts, obviously. And again, it kind of brings it back to, here we go again. Shido is fucking around with us even from fucking jail. You know, like he has nothing to do with what's happening right now, but he does. So it's a great, like, it was one of those moments that I was like, oh, they're bringing it back around, and I fucking love that, and I love how they connect lore, and I love how they connect the story there. That's awesome. Yeah, so we get to that point again, and then like the story kind of starts to evolve more and more, and then we start finding out about the founder of the app as well.
Ichinose, right?
Ichinose, correct. And then we find out about the owner of the app, which is Iwata. You know, basically now that they're both more that Ichinose had a purpose, but Iwata kind of now, when he bought out the app, he had even further of a purpose to manipulate humanity. And we'll talk about that in the last episode, or in our next episode. But it basically starts to kind of unravel and unfold here, more and more of what's happening. And then it starts now with Zenkichi and his daughter getting kind of tied into things because he's now involved with the Phantom Thieves himself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the jail now. So,
yeah, this is actually my favorite jail.
This is your favorite jail?
Yeah, this is. Although it felt like a very short jail.
Yep.
This is definitely my personal favorite jail.
Talk me through it.
Yeah, so I thought the way the jail was set up with like the teleporting, like the portals to try and like the portals to teleport between different areas, and the puzzle that they put in there, like the order of interacting with the statues and getting through to new areas. I thought the layout of it was really unique compared to a lot of the other ones. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
The reasons though for this being my favorite jail. First of all, this is where Zenkichi gets his own persona.
Yes.
And you get to play as Zenkichi, which I was not expecting even in the slightest, to be completely honest. I knew he was an integral character to the game, but I always thought he was going to be like a kind of off to the side character. So, I was like, okay, he's cool. I don't expect to play him, but whatever. And then we get to play him. That was like I was smiling ear to ear when that scene happened, when he started having his persona moment. I'm like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
This is very, very cool.
His awakening.
Yeah, his character, like him actually awakening to a persona, was very, very cool. He also had, his was focused mostly on, I think, was it blessed damage or his was almighty damage. That's right. He had non-specific damage, so he did like, I used him pretty much like most of the rest of the game. After that point, I was just like, yeah, because I'm like, yes, Zenkichi all the way, my favorite. Give me anything I can do with Zenkichi, I'll use him all the way. So He was always in my party. I'd almost always swap to him. I bought him all the best gear straight away. I'm just like, done, my boy.
yeah. Now he was awesome. Like even as a character, I love Zenkichi, but upon his awakening, yeah, man, like he really like. Actually, now that I think about it, I did use him a lot. Towards the end of the game, his moveset is so good. He's very quick on his feet, and yeah, I loved. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. I really did use Zenkichi a lot. Now that I think about it, wow.
He was easy to use too because his abilities, like almighty type damage, or type attacks, don't have any like. They're not strong against anything, but they're not weak against anything. So you're always doing like heavy damage to somebody.
Yeah.
So I found him like a good jack of all trades, and I leveled him up very soon.
Yeah. Getting him into the palace was an interesting scenario. Basically, what had happened was the Phantom Thieves had got trapped, except for Futaba. And
that's right. Yeah, the cage drops on them, and Akane's trapped all of them. Futaba trips and is lucky to not be trapped in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then Futaba leaves and actually brings Zenkichi in with her, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's the only hope, basically, is to get Zenkichi in there because, like, Futaba, obviously, Futaba doesn't really have an offense, and it's like, okay, what do we do? So,
I actually really enjoyed that stealth element too. Like, going through and like sneaking through was like a cool change. Because obviously, as a hack and slash game, it was a nice change of pace to be like not running around and, obviously the combat system's great. It was a satisfying game to play. It's still, I said this last time we recorded, it reminds me of Kingdom Hearts, and I love that game. But yeah, having a moment to actually like use the Phantom Thieves like stealth mechanics from Persona 5 and like, sneaking around corners but not engaging in fights was really fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, the moment you actually confront Akane and you see the Phantom Thieves like chained up and stuff, and or like in like the cage and they're trapped, and the interaction they have between them, like it. I'm really glad we didn't fight Akane and that it was an interaction between Shadow Akane and Zenkichi that got things going. And I don't know, I'm just the actual fight that came up after that's another reason why this is my favorite palace.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, so the one thing I love about this palace was that obviously the awakening of Zenkichi, but like you mentioned as well, I think what you were trying to kind of say was in terms of like when you enter the palace as Zenkichi the first time, and the gameplay mechanics are kind of being stripped from you, basically. Like everything was stripped in terms of traversal mechanics. You're a human. You're
it's
not
just normal. Yeah,
you're not a Phantom Thief. You're not.
You're just a guy in the metaverse.
Exactly, and you had to sneak around. You couldn't do much because you weren't able to fight any shadows at this point because you didn't have any abilities. And this was obviously before his awakening, but being someone that, just walking around in the metaverse and trying to hide behind things, man, I was freaking out. I was like, shit, if I get discovered, they're going to just tear me to shreds. What the fuck?
Did you get discovered? Because I didn't actually see what happens if you do get discovered.
No, I didn't. So I didn't even know either. So
No.
that would be an interesting one for me to kind of go back and have a look at. But that's also why, like, I was very meticulous and very slow at this point. Like, I was like, man, I better just take it easy and make sure I don't get discovered. But then, like, discovering the shadow version of his daughter, and then seeing, getting the awakening sequence as well, which is just, again, like, awesome as it is, because, like, I love those awakening sequences. They're always awesome.
Yeah.
And his one was awesome too, because I love the way that they kind of used his shadow as his talking point. So like when, they're trying to say, that whole dialogue that they get before their awakening and everything else, usually it's just like this voice in their head of, their persona talking to them. But this was the one thing I was like, man, this would have been really cool for them to use in like Persona 5, was where his shadow of himself on the floor had like these bright white eyes and was talking to him as well. I was like, man, that would have been really cool if they kind of did that in the mainline series as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like his outfit, his moveset, it's pretty sick. I love it. I love everything about it.
I'm watching the scene now, like the awakening scene, because I didn't recall his shadow on the ground having like the white eyes too, so I like that. It's really cool.
That was a very cool little feature, and I was like, man, why didn't they use that for the rest of them? That would have been fucking awesome. But yeah, so like I love Zenkichi being a Phantom Thief, man. I was like, yes, there is someone new in this game. Not that, like we have Sophie as well, but Sophie's there as an assistant. She's a Phantom Thief as well. But I don't know, there is something about Zenkichi becoming a Phantom Thief that I was like, yes, this is fucking awesome. I love it. So yeah, it's really cool.
Definitely one of my favorite reveals.
Yeah.
Or like favorite awakenings so far. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we move forward through the palace, and you've alluded to it already. The main fight out of all of this is not Shadow Akane. It's Shadow Phantom Thieves.
Yes.
This is one of my favorites. I love it.
This is a very, very fun fight.
Yeah.
Challenging. I think this is probably, this beat out the challenge of the Okinawa jail for me personally. How did you find it playing on normal compared to me being on easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl? How was it for you playing on normal?
Oh my God. So I racked my freaking brain playing this part. It took me forever.
Okay.
So, like, trying to get elements down of it and trying to figure out how to kind of get through it and defeat these shadows and everything, or the shadow versions of the Phantom Thieves, or even just the shadow version of Joker and everything. it was one of those moments where, and I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit here because I do want to talk about the palace and the jail, because it definitely had an interesting vibe to it as well. But the fight itself, holy shit, dude, it took me forever to beat Shadow Joker. I was like, man, because they take away the entire party from you, and you're only the one. It's
just a 1v1. Yeah,
it's a 1v1. It's Joker versus Joker, and this Shadow Joker is, if anything, just as skilled as our Joker. And I was like, man, what the fuck? He is kicking my ass, and I got my ass handed to me like so many times. But what I loved about it was the intro. The unveiling of the Shadow Phantom Thieves was just fucking insane.
Very, very cool, yeah.
The part of the intro where it kind of has a cinematic and then it kind of has the QuickTime event where they come together, that was sick. And then when they kind of start fighting and everything, you kind of know, okay, they do that each time it kind of gets to a point in the battle. And so you're like, okay, here's point 1, here's point 2, and here's point 3, and then the battle's finished.
Yeah.
But it was just the entire build up to it as well, which is really cool. Yeah, how did you find this fight?
So I said before, this is definitely more challenging than even the Okinawa jail for me. I still had managed to save up quite a lot, so I had a lot of the good gear on, and even so, with me kind of going in and button mashing it, I beat this in one try, but only by I healed a bunch of times in the fight, and if I hadn't have healed the time that I did, I still remember this because I ended up having 13 health left. And I got the last hit in, but I healed just before that. And if I hadn't have, then I would have died. So this was definitely a much more challenging fight than anything else. It's also having such a small boss to hit, I think, as well, kind of threw me, because most of the time you're bashing up against like a lock keeper, or like most of the time you got like some kind of like enormous monster, like Mariko, for example, is like this, or the dragon for is it Anga Natsume that we fought with the dragon?
Correct, yeah.
There's like usually all these massive bosses that we're fighting. To just fight a small one of us, basically, it was just such a different experience. And they're also so nimble, like being able to jump around and hit you from a range and stuff. It was, definitely a harder time compared to other fights. So I was very lucky to finish it in one go, because I panic button mash the whole time.
No, I did the same. And you used the perfect term for it as well, nimble, because Jesus Christ was he fast. And it's supposed to be a mirrored version of Joker as well, so of course he's going to be that fast. He's just as fast as your character, and how fast our character is, it was scary fast. So getting through that fight was something that was definitely a task in itself. And obviously the reasoning for the fight was behind Akane's vision of her version, the shadow version of, the Phantom Thieves, basically, that they would never oppose her. They would never threaten her. They're her friends. They're the people that are behind her. And that's basically what leads to their manifestation, is that these are her puppets now. Like, these are her version that would defend her. Whereas, the real Phantom Thieves at the moment have an objective to stop this shadow version at the moment. So it looks like it's an oncoming threat. But these shadow versions of them are obviously here to eliminate the real version. Now, I love their design, first of all. I love the fact that they're kind of gone with this whole dark but just flaming red hair on each of them.
Yeah, the black and red looks sick.
The glowing yellow eyes that each shadow has as well. Everything about the design was sick. So I really, really loved it.
The cinematics they used too in the intro were really cool, like with cutting to like the 4 and 4 of each group with like the red and black power up coming up, and then when they jump at you, like the shot of all of them in the air.
Yeah.
The shot before the fight, like that whole lead up is a very, very cool reveal.
Yeah, very much so. I audibly was like, well, fucking here we go. I just said that, and I was like, man, as much as I hated this fight, I loved it, because I hated it because it took me so fucking long to beat Joker.
Yeah.
But man, everything about it was so cool because it was it's such a free flowing, fast, expeditious fight. It was so good. Everything about it, I loved it. So this is one of my favorite fights of the entire game. So yeah. Now I want to bounce it back a little bit. Let's talk about the jail itself, because this was one of the more intriguing jails that I found. It really was like a topsy-turvy, twisty kind of deal where you were using portals half the time to get through it as well. And I was like, man, what the fuck? Where am I going here? So how'd you find it? How'd you find the whole puzzle piecing of this entire jail?
I kind of had a methodical sort of approach to it all, where I ended up running through every portal at least once and checked my map to see where it teleported me to, so I knew what would take me, and I kind of got my bearings first before I did anything. So, once I had kind of figured out what portal took me where and all that, I did also notice on the lamps, like the lamps hanging between some of the gates, there were Phantom Thief. There's a Phantom Thief hat or like symbol on them as well. And in the beginning that ended up being like, okay, cool, this is literally the way I have to go. Like that helped to guide me in like the right direction too. It was fun though. Like I liked the layout of it. Like I don't think we've seen portals quite like that in a jail or a palace before. I think the only time there's been a palace that reminds me of that, I can't remember which one it was now, but there's one that we do which has like there was the doors that were like stairs, or like things were upside down in different directions. I can't remember the name of the palace that it was, but that's the one that kind of gave me similar vibes of being like
Matarame's.
There we go. Yeah, Matarame's there. Yes, that was one that kind of gave me similar vibes, but I really liked it. I don't really have any. I didn't have any complaints about it. There was a couple of times where I think I got impatient and ran through some of the portals, and sometimes got lucky. Sometimes I didn't.
No, I did the same.
But yeah, it was good. I liked the aesthetic of it too, like being it was very traditional and still kind of really real worldy compared to some of the other palaces and jails we've been to as well. It was Okinawa's jail was obviously there was a almost like a blend between the real world and the cognitive world in that one, because the ruler of that jail had died. Whereas the Kyoto jail, just I guess in Akane's cognition or in her jail, it looked very traditional, and that's just the way that it looked. So
from what I'm gauging from that would be that her distortion is minimal, because
I guess so. Yeah,
it'd be such a fresh version of her shadow coming through, because it's more that her shadow's being manipulated to. Sorry, not manipulated, more so coerced.
She's being convinced or coerced.
Yeah. And also, it's also being manifested through Ichinose's encouragement of it existing. So this is more that this is more of a manipulated version of a shadow coming to form because of Ichinose's influence more than anything. So I guess the distortion wouldn't be as strong as others in that sense, basically. But there is certainly, it exists there, and you definitely see it. Like I've got it up on screen as well, where you basically have to fight these freaking cat-looking things, and oh god, man, like I hated those. There is Calamitous Cat God is what it's called, and like you enter an area.
Oh, is that the big area before the final statue you find?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
So it's those fights there as well, which were a bit of a pain in the ass. I hated those fights, to be honest. I thought they were just kind of like I felt they were very forced and bottlenecked in that kind of circumstance. I was like, okay, they're trying to impede my progress here a little bit.
Yeah. I think that might be why I found it such I commented before saying it was a very short jail. Playing it on easy, I think that you're right that the fights on normal or hard are definitely there to slow you down, because I did breeze through them quite easily. It was only that final Joker fight that I got like I was on my toes, but the other ones were very the right persona magic to use, and I was kind of able to cruise through that pretty easily. So
no, it was I found them to be there, and I thought it was more or less there wasn't really any narrative progression in those fights for me. Like I didn't really find them to be like, okay, this is a story moment, I guess. So Yeah, it was just a thing that happened, just kind of blocked me from getting forward. And that's okay. I mean, you're going to get those in any game, really. But it was one of those things where I felt it was filler. And so I was like, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that jail is a filler episode for you, yeah?
Oh, no. Don't get me wrong.
Or just those fights, you mean?
Those fights, yeah, those fights.
Right,
those
okay,
fights were pretty much
yeah.
like a bottleneck. The jail itself was awesome. Like you said, you mentioned it was one of your favorites. I'd say this was close to second favorite. If anything, like I enjoyed how they kind of took it apart from other jails instead of it being like one progressive, straightforward jail. Basically, like the jails have been different throughout the game. You had the very first one in Shibuya, which was more branched out, and you had to go into different places to find things, and you kind of had that in the second one as well. But what I started to notice was the jails were getting smaller and more compact, and their purpose, there was a certain purpose for each of them being there afterwards. I felt like their forms were starting to kind of take shape, each and every one that you visited. They weren't necessarily scattered, more or less. They weren't as widespread, I should say. Until, it almost was like it's starting to kind of compress, and when you get to the final act, it's going to implode. So
I get that. I can see that. Yeah.
Well, at least that's the vibe I got. But it was an interesting one. So once we defeat the shadow versions of ourselves, we're basically taken back to reality, where we find Akane basically like passed out, and Zenkichi's very remorseful about not spending enough time with his daughter and everything. So it's one of those it's again one of those circumstances where him not understanding that defeating his daughter in the metaverse, it's not reality. And it's one of those moments, it's a very sad moment, but no, she's fine, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's cool to see him learn about the metaverse and how it all works as well, like as time goes by, and him slowly, I guess, like unwillingly becoming a Phantom Thief. I know he didn't really set out to become a Phantom Thief in all of this, but it's
hilarious because he doesn't want it.
No, but he's getting it.
Yeah.
Well, he gets it in this jail, so he's a Phantom Thief now.
I love it because he's such an unwilling personality in this entire game. He hates it. Like he hates he's like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, no, I don't want to become a Phantom Thief. I don't want to do any of this. Bad luck. You're getting it.
Too bad, yeah.
And I still love how a lot of the Phantom Thieves treat him almost like he's a child, and it becomes more and more like that as the game goes on. But it's not even like that. He's Gramps. He doesn't understand shit.
It's a term of affection or endearment in the end.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And we'll get more into that, but we'll wrap it up with this. Basically, I feel like as we've passed these jails and getting further and further, I really loved kind of like the connection that had been formed here between Zenkichi and the thieves, and how he now has an objective as well as a resolve here to further explore what's happening now, because it's become personal. This has become personal.
His family's been involved, yeah.
Exactly. So not only does he now his resolve kind of flipped. So we just said it, like where he was so unwilling. Now he has that resolve where he's like, you've made this personal. Now I'm going to fuck you up. So it really kind of flips here, and now he becomes willingly a Phantom Thief throughout this entire thing, which is really cool. Which is something that was honestly unexpected, to be honest. Like I wasn't expecting him to become more acclimated with what a Phantom Thief is and what it means to be one. So it's really, really, it's a cool flip in the entire scenario. So
I'm glad that he got involved. I'm definitely happy that he got involved, because if he never did, I don't know how they would have taken it, or how they would have kept him as an important character aside from obviously working with them. But being able to, this is like I said, part of why this is my favorite jail. Is one of my favorite characters. Like, now if they didn't include your boy back at home, then he would have been my favorite character for the whole series.
Yeah, I agree. Holmesy, as we wrap up, was there any additional notes that you had of these two jails?
Nothing specifically for these jails. I just had general notes down for the game, I guess. I do have one thing that I wish they had done, but I get why they haven't. I wish they made Ren canon for the game.
As in his name?
Yeah, because like there's a lot of times where I feel like Ren's voice actor in the anime that I watched. I really like his voice actor.
Xenomobus, yeah.
Yeah, so I reckon it would have been. I think it's almost. I get the idea of playing your story and like it being you can name yourself.
You would have liked the voice of Ren in the game.
I would have much preferred, personally, now after playing Persona 5 and playing this game, I would have actually much rathered it not be like you're playing your own game and like you're the Phantom Thief. I would much rather it be that you don't get to name your character, you're Ren, and they gave Ren voice acting lines throughout the game. I feel like it would add so much more to be playing. Like, there's so many cutscenes where he just doesn't speak and it feels weird. Like he says remarkably little for a leader. And so many times when you pick dialogue, I'd like to hear him talk. So it's like one thing that I wish they had in the game, I guess, but it's still a good experience. Like Persona 5 and this game is still good, but I think his voice actor is too good to leave out of the game.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be an interesting element to add for Persona 6, maybe, like if they were to include, like they would still have the facets of, you know, being able to steer dialogue. So basically you get a choice of 3 lines that you have there, and when you choose one, instead of it, you know, being a silent response in a way, he actually has a line. Or they actually have a line, you know, kind of like how you Horizon Zero Dawn being a good example, where you choose
there's voice lines for everything.
Yeah, you choose a dialogue piece, and Aloy actually has a response. That would be really cool to see, and you know, I don't know about them actually allowing a fixed name to be put onto a protagonist, because I think that'd be too much of a change, and people would be like, well, I don't like that, but.
Yeah, I don't know whether they've done it for all their past. I feel like all the past games have been not a fixed name, right? You've been able to pick your own name for every Persona game, right? Yeah. So breaking away from that, I can understand.
However, being like a traditional Japanese development teams have always been like fixed on that. The only game I've ever seen kind of take that away has been Breath of the Wild, whereas past iterations of The Legend of Zelda have always made the player pick a name for Link.
Right.
Where in Breath of the Wild, you don't get that choice.
You don't get anything.
Your Link. No. And that's how we want it. And honestly, like everybody that played The Legend of Zelda never ever not never ever, but a lot of the players that used to play The Legend of Zelda really kind of used the default when it used to come up, which was Link, enter. Yeah. And so it was Link. So again, it was fitting that, you know, Nintendo kind of said, no, scrap the whole custom name thing. It's Link. Plus, you know, the addition of voiceover dialogue happened for the very first time in Breath of the Wild as well, for all their characters except for Link. Obviously, Link still being a silent protagonist in the game. But it was the first time that they allowed voice actors to, you know, enter the fray for like characters like Zelda. Whereas beforehand, there was never ever characters that spoke within the franchise. It was Breath of the Wild was the first one.
Right. Okay. So there's I didn't know. I've not played them before. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a first for everything as well. Well, you played Breath of the Wild. It was obvious that you played Breath of the Wild.
I've not played that. Yeah. I've not played any of the other Legend of Zelda games.
That freaking dab. It's interesting, but I think I don't know whether they would do that, because traditional Japanese development, they're very fixed on the way that they kind of go forward with development. They're like, we don't really like to push the envelope there because then fans get upset and all that bullshit.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, you never know. There's a first for everything, like you said. So, Holmesy, that's it for this episode.
Hell yeah.
Guys, if you didn't know, This is Dash and Holmesy Take Your Hearts. It's our book club inspired gaming podcast where Holmesy and I have gotten together for the last couple of years and spoken about Persona 5. Don't forget to follow Mr. Holmesy at Holmesy5. You can follow myself at Dash Gamer. Don't forget to follow the show over on Anchor, iTunes, and Spotify. Give us those cheeky 5-star ratings. They surely help us out. Also, catch the VOD over on dashgamer.com and on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit that bell. Give us a like. Leave us a comment. It surely helps us out. Another one for the books, Holmesy.
Wrapping it up real soon.
Yeah. So guys, we'll catch you for our last ever episode next episode. But until then, take care, stay safe, wash your hands. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. Wash them hands.
Always.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You picked the wall. Did you think you could get away? You have us to repay.
DashGamer.com